When is it too late to back out of buying a house? All right, guys, this is a fantastic question. Thank you for asking it. If you've got a question you want me to put a video together like this, just type it in the comments below and I will put it on my video list of videos I'd love to make for you. Okay, so when is it too late to back out of a contract, a real estate purchase contract when buying a house? There's a couple of deadlines we need to talk about here. And so this is really important. We're going to jump over to the whiteboard here. So when you make an offer on a property, what happens is the buyer puts a contract together called a real estate purchase contract, or REPC is what it's been referred to. Now the buyer outlines all the terms and all the things they would like to have. For example, the price, the closing deadline, the date, different terms they're going to be putting in there. And then that goes over to the seller, okay? And the seller can then accept, or they can deny, or they can do a counter offer, okay? Accept, deny, counter offer. They can do those types of things. Accepting it means yes, they agree to it, and then they're under contract. Denying it means no thanks, start at square one. Counter offer says, I like everything, but I want to change just a few things about this, okay? So part of this purchase contract has a couple of deadlines for a buyer. One of the deadlines that it's going to have is it is going to have inspections and evaluation. Okay, they're going to have an inspections and evaluation deadline. They're typically going to have an appraisal deadline. And they are typically going to have a loan deadline. When this contract happens, one of the things the buyer does is he puts up some earnest money deposit. That could range anywhere from $50 to $50,000 depending. Pretty typical is going to be somewhere around $1,000 depending upon price range, depending upon that type of stuff. Now, what happens is that earnest money is going to go into a trust account. It could be held by the attorney, could be held by title company, could be held by a real estate agent. One thing I will tell you, do not give it to the seller. That's really important, is make sure it's held in trust through somewhere else. Now, with this, you're going to have some of these deadlines. With these deadlines, there's a date, okay? So you could say July 31st, or, maybe this one is August 10th and this one's August 20th, something like that. You're going to have a date with each one of these. And with most contracts, at 5 p.m., the date of this date is when you have passed that deadline. And with most contracts, what it basically says is, as a buyer, you have the right to do inspections and evaluations on the property. If you think about it, you've only been on the property for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. You want to get in there, you want to get your ladder, you want to have a home inspector, you want your grandma to see it, whatever. You want to make sure this is really the house for you. Now, if prior to July 31st, you say, you know what, we decided this isn't the house for us. Now, that could be a feeling. That could be that you found something you don't like. That could be anything. You can pull out and say, I am not going to buy the house. No buy. And give me back my $1,000 of earnest money. And the seller would be liable to do that. Okay. Same thing happens if the property doesn't appraise for the price you're thinking and it's prior to that August 10th deadline, then you could not buy the property and you could get your earnest money back. If you don't get the loan with the interest rate and the things that you were hoping prior to this deadline, then you could pull out of the contract and get your earnest money back. So at any of these times, you could pull out of the contract. Now, another thing, depending upon how the contract is written, is if it was past this August 3rd, let's say August 30th was the closing deadline, and it's August 30th and you don't close on the property, it depends on how your contract's written. In some contracts, they say the earnest money becomes the seller, and that's all the damages, so you would lose $1,000. In other contracts, they allow you to sue for either liquidated damages, losses that you have in association with this, or sue for what's called enforcement of the contract, which requires that the buyer goes ahead and closes. So those are a couple of things you're going to want to look into to make sure your contract doesn't have or has, depending upon which side of the table you want to be on, is what are the damages if you don't close. More and more I'm seeing contracts that say if we end up not closing, you can take the earnest money as full damages, which means you're going to want to make sure that your earnest money is an amount of money you're willing to lose, which means it's never too late to back out of the house as long as you are willing to lose the earnest money that you have put up. Now, if you put up $50,000, that's going to be a problem. If you put up $50, it's probably less of a problem. But those are the things to think about as we're dealing with these deadlines and when you can actually back out of the contract. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. It tells YouTube that I'm doing a great job and I want to do a great job for you and for my YouTube subscribers. If you're not one of them, please consider subscribing. If you want to text me, I will give you a copy of a purchase contract that outlines these things that we've been talking about. You can text me at 435-294-0433. I've also got a video, what is the process of closing on a house? If you haven't done this before or it's been a while, you're going to want to check that one out. As well as a blog post, the 3 real estate purchase agreement mistakes to avoid. That's what we're talking about here, guys, is these real estate purchase contracts, and you want to make sure you don't have these mistakes. I'll put a link to that blog in the notes so you can read up on that. Otherwise, make it a very profitable day, and bye for now.